Welcome to the Pro MMA Betting podcast. This week we are going to discuss the Moraes Sandhagen fight card. Decent fight card, this one. Quite looking forward to it. Really good main event. So we will break down the whole card from a betting angle, as we always do. As I always say, this is a bit different to most podcasts. I don't just pick the fighter who I feel is going to win. I will look at the value, we'll determine if there's value there, and a lot of the time we'll pick where we feel the value is. Sometimes I don't. I don't like going against if I have a strong gut feel, even if I think there's value on the line. But normally we will look at picking the underdog or what, even the favourite, depending on if there's line value. So this is more tailored towards guys that like to have a bet and want to try and make money on betting on the UFC or MMA in general. There was no podcast last week. I've been a bit sporadic, as regular listeners will know. As I said before, it's just been so full on with the cards because of COVID and because all the organisations are cramming all their cards in at once. We're getting, 3-4 cards a week. We had, I think it was 4 cards last week. This week we've got 2 Bellator cards and the UFC, so you've got 3 again. And then some of the UFC cards have been really weak as well, and I've just not been motivated to do this podcast. It takes me a few hours to get the whole thing done by the time you edit it and upload it and obviously record the actual podcast, and just lack of motivation. But I like this card this week, and it is busy again this week, so we've got 2 Bellator cards, but I think we're only going to get odds for probably 6 fights. For the MVP card, there's 4 main card fights, but for the Timothy Johnson fight, at the moment anyway, they're only showing 2. It's only showing as 2 main card fights, and you only get odds for the main card fights. I know some of the more rogue Euro bookies offer undercard odds, but it's poor limits, and I'm banned on all of them anyway, and a lot of my members won't have access to it, so I don't look at the undercard, and it's just too much anyway. I can't be sitting there capping 15 Bellator fights, 15 UFC fights, 15 LFA fights. It will just get ridiculous. So I just stick to the main card on Bellator. So you're looking at probably odds for 6 fights on Bellator across the 2 cards. They've done that weird split again where it's in the same arena, but they're showing the shows at different times. It's just bizarre. And then we've got the UFC card as well. So I'll just do a quick recap over the last couple of weeks, just because there was no pod last week. So, not the week just gone, week before that. Let me just pull up the bets we had. So there was a Bellator on the 26th of September. We had Costello Van Steenis to defeat Fabian Edwards. We had 2 units on Costello, minus 120, I think members got. I managed to snipe the line at Bet Online and managed to get an average of about plus 110, but members got minus 120. Costello came through for us there. Split decision. It was a bit dicey. I thought we'd done enough to win. I thought he edged round 1. I wasn't confident though. I thought the UFC might have... Bellator might have, will probably do have aspirations for Fabian in terms of being a bit of a poster boy for them, etc. So I didn't think I was going to get the decision, but it went our way. So very happy with that we was able to jump on the Fabian Edwards fade train. And for the UFC that weekend, we had 2 units on Ketlen Vieira at around... I think we got about minus 160 off the top of my head, minus 170 maybe, which came in. She definitely looked like she was lacking confidence to me, coming back from that KO loss. I'm not sure where Ketlen goes from here. She needs to get her confidence back because she definitely fought like someone that just wasn't confident. So, we got the W. It was a clear victory, 29-28, but there's definitely a bit of a question mark over her. And we had a unit on Israel versus Costa going over 2.5, which didn't come in. So we went 2-1 on bets, made profit for the weekend. That weekend as well, I did give 2 members free Cage Warriors tips. I haven't tracked them because odds for Cage Warriors weren't widely available. So I'm not tracking it. I'm fully transparent. I only track bets that the majority of people can get on, and the Cage Warriors ones you couldn't, unfortunately. But the ones that could managed to jump on 3 winners there. I tipped Adam Amirkhani to win on Cage Warriors, comfortable decision win for him. I tipped James Webb to win against Craig White, comfortable first round victory for him. And I also tipped Mason Jones when he dropped to minus 120. A lot of money. There's low liquidity on these Cage Warriors shows, but the price dropped a lot. Mason dropped to minus 120, so I did say to guys that was worth a bet once the price had come down, and all 3 of them came in as well. But like I said, none tracked, but for members that could get on, 3 winning tips there for them. Week just gone was a very busy week for us. If I just tell you what we had, because there was quite a few bets, because we had quite a few shows. Let me just go on my Twitter, because I tweeted out all the bets. I think there was about 6. One sec, guys. So we had, trying to do it in order. So we had Bellator on Thursday. We had Brian Moore minus 185. Second round KO win for him. We had Norbert Neveni Jr. under 1.5 rounds at plus 100. I mean, some people got bigger plus money on that. I know like Bet365 had it, or William Hill had it at plus 138. So, but I just averaged it at plus 100 because some books had like minus 110, minus 120. So I put it down as plus 100. That came in for members. Then we had LFA 92 on Friday. Rodney Kilohi at minus 200. First round victory for him. The Norbert Neveni one came in, by the way. I don't know if I said that, but he got the victory in the first round. Rodney Kilohi, LFA 92, minus 200. 30-second victory there. Bellator again on Saturday. We had a unit on Charlie Leary at plus 190 against Kiefer Crosby. That cashed for us. And then on the UFC, we had 2 units on Kyler Phillips to win inside the distance, minus 137. Comfortably came in for us as well. So we've had a really, really solid couple of weeks. Live betting, though, hasn't been so great. We're actually, over the last couple of events, we've had live betting for Bellator, and there's been some boxing live betting. We're down somewhere between 1 and 2 units over the last couple of weeks. So the pre-bets have been solid, been firing in. But yeah, live betting's been a little bit hit and miss. Like last weekend with the UFC, I didn't give out any live bets except for we just threw half a unit on Alexa Kamor after round 2 because he was like plus 300 and it was 1-1, and even though it wasn't looking good, you have to take the risk on them kind of lines when it's 1-1 going into round 3. But that was literally the only bet we had on the UFC. And then since then we've had there's been a few boxing live bets. UFC just gone, we had 4. I took Imavov inside the distance after round 2. Unfortunately he gassed himself, so it didn't come in for us. Carlos Condit decision we took after round 2, which was pretty crazy considering the price. He was like about minus 175 or something after 2 rounds. He was clearly 2 rounds up. And then we took a shot on Juliana Pena after round 1, half a unit at plus 400, which gutted it didn't come in. I did advise the guys to cover at the end of round 2 because GDR was even money. So I said, throw half a unit on GDR, you cover your half a unit then, and if GDR does win, you break even. So guys should have broke even on that, but that was gutting that didn't come in because that really looked like Pena was going to win that fight. So yeah, unit between, I haven't added it up properly, but it's somewhere between a unit and 2 units down over the last couple of weeks on the live betting. But as I said, with the pre-bets, including the Cage Warriors tips I gave out that aren't tracked, were like 11 and 1 on the last 12 pre-bets or something. So it's been going really well. If you want to sign up to the service, guys, ProMMABetting.com. You can go to Premium Bets on the website, and that lists all the packages available from weekly to monthly to 6 monthly to yearly, pre-bets and live bets, just live bets, just pre-bets. If there's anything membership-wise that isn't there that you like, I don't know, I don't offer a 3-month one, for instance. If you want that, just DM me. on Twitter at Pro MMA Betting, or email me info@prommbetting.com and we can sort something out. But we're fully transparent. Everything is tracked, pre-bets and live bets. I post my bet slips on Twitter. I like to prove that I am betting what I am tipping. I like to show that my balls are on the line. And ultimately, I like to show you guys that I'm not just sending out paper tips. It makes a big difference when you are betting the lines that you are tipping. It's very easy for me to tip something and not bet it and not really be bothered, to be honest, at the end of the day. Of course, you want it to hit if you're I hate the word tout, but I know that's what a lot of people call us. But when you hand out a tip and you've got the money on it yourself, it makes you re-qualify that tip, and if you really want to be handing it out, especially if you've got proper money on it. If you're only throwing like a tenner on it, you're not going to be too bothered. But when you're using units properly, and they are 1% of your bankroll, and you've got, a 4-unit tip, and it's 4% of your bankroll on the line, it really makes you think, is this a tip I want to give out? It changes the mentality completely. Some of you probably aren't going to understand where I'm coming from here, but just believe me, if you're following a tipster, especially if you're paying for their service, you should be asking for proof that they're betting, and they shouldn't be covering up the stake either. That raises a lot of question marks for me when you do see someone provide a bet slip and they cover up the stakes. Like, why? What are you hiding? What? Because you're only betting a couple of quid. These guys need to be more transparent. They need to be held accountable, and it changes the game completely when they are betting and betting properly what they are tipping, because it makes you reaffirm that bet. Because not only do you not want to let your clients down, but you obviously don't want to lose money yourself. So that's why I'm fully transparent, and I'm very transparent with what I use. I use £1,000 per unit, and I can always back that up with bet slips. I always bet what I tip. I never, ever do not bet what I tip. So prommmabetting.com for the service. Let's jump into the card. I'm going to try and fly through it quick because it's quite a big card. I don't want to be talking for ages and ages. But we'll break down the card as we always do from the first fight and work our way up. So first fight, flyweight, Bruno Silva, Takir Ilambikov. Really gutted with regards to Takir. He was meant to fight, I can't remember when it was now, a month, 6 weeks or so ago, against another fellow Russian. Betting line was great. He was like minus 130, I think. I really, really loved him in that spot at that price. Unfortunately, I think it was because Khabib's dad passed away and he'd trained with him his whole career. He pulled out of the fight. And now he's got Bruno Silva and he's a minus 350 favourite. So it's just, I'm not betting him at minus 350. UFC debut. Bruno Silva's, he's not great, but he's not a complete mug. I'm still picking Takir to win here. I like the look of him from when I done tape when he was meant to make his UFC debut. As I said, I really like the price. It was one of my favourite bets that I've lost since we've restarted under the COVID conditions. And I've lost a lot of bets from cancellations due to COVID and whatever other reasons. So it's, it has been frustrating, but that was definitely one of my favourite ones that I lost. But I'm picking him here, but for me, there's no value, and over unders, there's nothing really that I'm taking from them either. So it's just a complete pass fight, but the pick is Takir. I do like him. I think he's a talented kid. Next, women's bantamweight, Tracy Cortez taking on Stephanie Egger. So Egger's a late replacement here. Bia Malecki has pulled out the fight, so it's changed up the fight stylistically for Cortez because Egger is another wrestler now. For Egger, there's not much tape, so I pretty much passed on this fight in terms of digging too deep into it because quite simply you can't. Stephanie Egger is 5-1. She won gold in the ADCC Euro trials, which, doesn't necessarily mean a great deal. Europe is still a long way behind on the grappling front, and I imagine the women's is especially behind. But she did go to ADCC. She did face Gabby Garcia. I can't find the fight. She lost on points, but I found a comment on her Instagram where it sounded like it was a terribly boring fight where they was basically just standing and not engaging much for the majority of the fight. I could be wrong there, but just from there was a post she made, it sounded like that's what's happened, and from the pictures I saw. And she ended up losing a points decision in overtime. I can't find her fight with Renee Mayura from Rising 17, which I really wanted to see. And you can find her last fight, but it's against Bum. It's not going to tell you anything. And then the Alexa Connors fight is available, but it's from 4 years ago. So it's like, surely she's improved. She looks big. She's fought at 145. There's a picture of her on Instagram. I think she went out to Team Alpha Male a while back for a week. She looks bigger than Uriah Faber. So she is a big girl. Tracy Cortez is fighting at 135 here. I think she is a 125er. Whether she moves back down, I don't know. So I honestly can't make a prediction, guys. What I will say, because there's just a lack of tape on Edgar, what I will say is I think if you're betting Tracy Cortez and parlaying her up here, I think you're crazy. She's like a minus 250 favourite last time I looked. She started to drop a little bit at some places, minus 235 I'm seeing. I still think that's madness. Tracy Cortez, she isn't great. I mean, she struggled to get her wrestling going against Vanessa Mello. She couldn't really get her down in round 2, and she was trying the whole round. Round 3, she caught a kick and got a takedown. But like I said, Edgar, she's got that grappling background. She's big. This could get interesting. Like I said, I haven't seen enough to bet Edgar. I don't like blind betting, which you pretty much are here. You're having to make some assumptions. I don't really like doing that. But I think you can't be betting Tracy Cortez here at that price. I think that's madness. So, look, gun to my head, I'll pick Edgar, but I'm going blind here. I'm just going off the value, plus 200. I don't think she should be plus 200 here. But as I say, I am making some assumptions. And she's on short notice as well. So who knows what kind of shape she's in. But I think the value is probably on Edgar, but I'm going blind. So don't go betting Edgar and land silly money on it. That's not something that I'm saying you should do here. It's a complete pass fight for me. Next fight of the night, we have Giga Chikadze taking on Omar Moraes. Giga, there's something about Giga. I can't put my finger on it that I'm just not sure about him, to be honest. There's just something there. I just don't think his ceiling's that high. He's obviously got the decorated striking background, but I don't have high expectations for him. He's won a few fights in a row in the UFC now, but he hasn't faced anyone. I mean, he fought Erwin Rivera, who's a 135er. Jamal Emmers, split decision, very close fight. Jamal should have wrestled more. And then he got that split decision win over Brandon Davis, where, again, his ground game was kind of exposed. Probably going to get the stand-up fight he wants here against Omar Moraes. Omar, he's fought at welterweight and he's moving down to 145 now at 35 years of age. I don't know how he's going to look at 145. He's a big lightweight. He looks a big lightweight. And like I said, he's fought at welterweight. Now he's moving down. He's done well so far. He got a good win on the Contender Series against Harvey Park, stopped him. Then decision over Maestro Kim. Bit of a tepid affair that actually turned out to be. And then he's coming off a close decision win over Gabriel Benitez. I bet Omar in that fight, and it was a very competitive, close fight. But Gabriel Benitez is a very good kickboxer. But I thought Omar's power would come into play there, but he couldn't actually put Gabriel away. So it's an interesting fight. Some guys managed to jump on Chikadze when he went up to about plus 175, which I think is a good bet because it's probably going to be a stand-up fight. But saying that, Omar did use some top control against Maestro Kim. It could be something he could look to mix in here. But plus 175 is a good bet for Giga. But like I say, there's just something about him that I just don't trust. The money's come back in on Giga. So the line has dropped. So you can get Moraes now at around, he's minus 135 at 5 dimes. So at most places, he's basically minus 150, minus 155. It's still landing the territory for me where it's no bet. Giga was a bet at plus 175-ish. I missed that. I don't like the line now running like plus 120. Not really. I just don't fancy it. But Omar's still a bit too steep for me. I just don't know how he's going to look at 145. But I am going to pick him here just because there's something just about Giga that I just don't like. And this is definitely his toughest test to date in the UFC. He has had it pretty easy so far. Like I said, Erwin Rivera, short notice, 135er. Jamal Emmers is, he's improved his striking, but ultimately he's a wrestler who didn't wrestle. And then Brandon Davis, who, Brandon's not bad, but he's very hittable on the feet. He's kind of tailor-made for someone like Giga. And, Brandon's no longer in the UFC. Erwin's probably going to be cut himself after his last loss. And Jamal Emmers is probably hanging on by a thread. I can't remember if Jamal's coming off a win. He is coming off a win, isn't he? That late notice replacement. So Jamal's probably okay for another fight or two, but he's had a relatively easy run. This is definitely a step up fight for him, and I think Omar's going to win. But just with the question marks around him cutting down to 145, it's just putting me off paying that price on him. I'd probably be tempted if I started seeing minus 120, minus 130 on Omar, but at the minute it's a past fight. I don't think. It probably goes to a decision, but it's priced accordingly, so there's not really anything on the prop side there for me either. So I'm picking Omar, but I don't love the price currently, but let's see if it drops down a bit more. Ali Al-Quayizi taking on Tony Kelly next at Bantamweight. I know a lot of people that are on Tony Kelly here, some of them quite big. Managed to get a good price, around minus 150 or so. I didn't get round to tape until Kelly had shot up to, I think he was about minus 170, minus 180. He's now up at minus 225. After tape, I do think it's a good fight for Tony Kelly. I do expect him to come through here. The question marks are, like Omar Moraes, Kelly is cutting down to 135 here. I believe it's the first time he's fought as a professional at 135, and he is 34 years of age. So, when was the last time he weighed 135 pounds? Probably a long time ago. It may be of no significance. It may come into play. Now, he did get taken down a lot in his last fight, and he did slow down. But I have to give him the benefit of the doubt there. His opponent was going to the body a lot. That definitely would have taken it out of him. And he was hurt to the body. And I think him being hurt to the body and worrying about getting hit to the body played a part in him getting taken down so easily as well. And plus, obviously, the body shots were zapping his cardio. But he did work back to his feet every time. He was never held down for too long. He did like going into the clinch to land elbows. Now, doing that against Al-Quayizi will give Al-Quayizi the opportunity to clinch up with him and try and hit takedowns. But I just don't think Ali's path to victory here, realistically, from looking at tape, is him wrestling and earning enough top control time. And just when you go and watch Ali's fights and you watch a fight with Rivera, he couldn't really keep Rivera down. Rivera is a good scrambler, but even I haven't gone back and watched his regional stuff. I did when he fought Rivera because I bet Rivera there. But I'm pretty sure from memory that even on the regionals, he's not really holding these guys down. He does have a dangerous guillotine, so Tony has to be careful when he's working his way back to his feet. But what I did notice in his UFC debut, Kelly, was I'm pretty sure he worked his way back to his feet without giving his back up. I'm going off my memory here, but I'm pretty sure he's a guy that would get his back against the fence and stand up that way as opposed to turtling and standing up from his knees. So that will help protect him as well here against the guillotine, because he probably is going to get taken down, but I just expect him to get up, and I think he's going to outwork Ali on the feet here. So I'm going to go with Kelly. Wish I'd taped it now when he was that minus 140 price or so, because I probably would have taken Kelly, but like I said, he was about, I can't remember now, minus 170, minus 180 when I taped it, and just a little bit steep for me, just with the question marks with him moving down to 135 at 34 years of age. And he did gas and he did get taken down a lot. But as I said, I think that was mainly to do with him being hurt to the body and that sapping his gas tank. But But you never know, moving down as well, that could play havoc with your cardio. So that just put me off. But I think if you did get the minus 150 or better, I think it's a good bet. So I'm going to go with Tony Kelly here. We've gone through a number of fights so far. I'm always conscious if I haven't picked an underdog, because I'm not going through a whole card picking favourites. Oh no, I picked Edgar, didn't I? I said Edgar, even though it's a bit blind. I did say Edgar. Next, Imper Kasangane taking on Joaquin Buckley. I think it's going to be a good fight. Buckley comes, he throws down heavy. He seems to have, even though he throws everything into his shots and he throws at a pretty good clip, he seems to have decent cardio. His chin's my worry though. He got knocked out on the regional scenes. Kevin Holland dropped him in round 1 and then knocked him out in round 3. So chin is a bit of a worry for me with regards to Buckley here. Impa seems to have a solid set of whiskers, but I don't think he should be minus 250 here. I think he's getting a little bit overrated. I mean, let's be real. He had his Contender Series fight, his very first Contender Series fight. We're going back a couple of years now, and he definitely benefited from the guy slowing down. His last Contender Series fight, which was very recent, again, had a bit of a slow start, got outstruck round 1, but his opponent gassed again, so it allowed him to take over. Makes his UFC debut against Maki Pitolo, wins a decision, and let's be real, Maki Pitolo is not a UFC caliber fighter, so you got to be careful with him. But I wouldn't be betting him at minus 250. I know people are going to be throwing him in their parlays and whatnot. You know, he's 8-0, he looks very athletic, ripped to the bone. He does have good cardio. He seems to have a good chin. He'll throw heavy. He's got a bad habit of dipping his head, which someone like Buckley probably has noted. So he's got to be careful with them uppercuts, because I think Buckley will be looking for that, when he should be when you go off the tape. He's not really a finisher. He did hit Pitolo with some big shots. Pitolo took them well. And he does normally revert to grinding as well, Imper. He does have that in his back pocket, but he's fought at a low level so far. So Buckley, is Buckley a step up? Possibly a slight step up here against. But look, I expect Imper to get the W, but I honestly don't think anyone should be parlaying Impa or even betting him straight at that like minus 250 range. Let me just check the price. I'm sure he's minus 250. Impa minus 250. Basically on average minus 250. You're not for me. At the same time, I'm not overly keen on playing Buckley as the underdog. He's only 2 months removed from that knockout loss. Is that going to affect him in this fight? Because his game is all about moving forward, throwing lots of hands. Is it going to affect his game here? That's something you have to bear in mind as well when guys are coming off knockouts. And not only because they're coming off a knockout, but then they start to worry about their job. Are they going to get cut if they lose here? This game's so mental. It's a big chunk of the game. So is that going to affect him? I know he's just had a kid. You probably worry financially and stuff. I'm not sure if he trains full time. Is this his full time job? So, I don't like factoring in the mental side of things too much, because it's just impossible to cap it. You just, everyone's different. But I wouldn't play Impa, but at the same time, I'm not overly inclined to play Buckley here. So I'm gonna pick Impa to get the W. Next fight, Chris Daukaus taking on Rodrigo Nascimento. I haven't taken this fight, but I do quite like Nascimento. Let me just check this is the right guy. I'm sure he's the guy I bet on Contender Series. There wasn't much tape to go off, but I faded his opponent because he was... he didn't look good, and he trains in the Czech Republic, and I've kind of made a little bit of a career of fading Italians and even Czech Republic fighters. I'm sure it was Rodrigo that got that win. He trains at American Top Team as well, and then he had his UFC debut against Martinek, and then he had his UFC debut against Dontel Mays. He looked decent in that fight, got a nice round 2 win. Look, it's heavyweight. He's too juiced for me, Nascimento. I was hoping the price was going to be decent, but I think I was being overly optimistic. He's minus minus 275, minus 300. Low level heavyweight fight. I'm not paying that. And there are still question marks about Nascimento. With the Martinek fight was very quick, and then Bantamweight isn't particularly good. And he's probably got another layup fight here as well. Chris Daukaus. I mean, look, he's not terrible, Chris Daukaus. You can watch his you can watch his fight on Fight Pass against Azuna, where he was in control, had Azuna badly hurt in the first round. But Azuna managed to turn it around and stop him in round 2. And then, he looked good against Parker Porter, but Parker Porter, not a good fighter. I think Nascimento is going to win this fight, but I think, again, heavyweight, low level, anything can happen. I don't think you should be parlaying him up here, which people are probably doing. Each to their own. If that's your style and you can make it work for you long term, then fair play. But just playing the juice in MMA long term, it's very difficult to make profit. So I'd recommend a pass on that fight completely. I'm going to pick Nascimento. The over set at 1.5. I haven't really got a lean either way. I mean, the under is favoured. The over is actually at plus money. You can get plus 125 at Pinnacle. I don't know. I'm just looking. I mean, Daukaus has been in his 3 losses. They've all been, well, 2 of them have been under 1.5. The Azuna one was late in round 2. I don't know. Plus 125. I think if it got a bit higher, it would be tempting. If we start getting plus 140 territory, I might be interested. At a minute, I'll probably pass. But I'm going to pick Nascimento there. He's at American top team as well, so he's putting the work in. But the line just makes it unplayable for me. And again, just like I said with the previous fight, I don't really fancy Daukaus to pull this off as the underdog either. Next up, Tom Breese returning against KB Bhullar. Quite predictably, Tom Breese is getting bet up here, probably getting parlayed up. Bettors seem to love betting Tom Breese for some bizarre reason. I can't bet the guy, especially as a sizable favourite. He's been bet all the way up to minus 275 here. Look, I understand why people like him here. KB Bhullar isn't very good. I watched KB Bhullar's last fight against Matt Dwyer, ex-UFC guy. Won a 5-round decision. Was a year ago, so, Bhullar could have made some improvement. So I get it from a stylistic point of view why you'd want to bet Tom Breese here, but I've been burnt a lot betting flakes in this sport, and it's something that I'm trying to completely avoid it now, no matter how favourable the matchup is stylistically. I don't like betting flakes. And Tom Breese for me is a flake. He's got well documented issues with anxiety and so forth. And look, I feel for the guy. Like, it must be horrible. But if you've got anxiety issues and whatnot, I mean, you're in the wrong sport, man. I mean, there's nothing more nerve-wracking than going into that cage to fight another man. So, as I always say, I don't like factoring in the mental side of things too much into my capping because it's hard to cap, basically. It's hard to put a percentage on it. But someone like Tom Breese, serial offender. You've got those fighters out there that just, like Michael Johnson, he just flakes in the cage. Tom Breese doesn't flake so much in the cage, but all them pull-outs and that, you just have to wonder where he's at. I think he did flake against Brendan Allen. I really regret not betting Brendan Allen. I picked him and I was tempted to bet him as an underdog because Brendan Allen is the kind of guy that's going to give someone like Tom Breese fits because he's in your face. He brings the fight to you, and it's something that someone like Tom Breese isn't going to like. Now, like I said, stylistically, KB Bhullar doesn't look like that type of guy. Breese is probably going to get the kind of fight he likes here. But, Tom Breese hasn't been past round 1 for over 4 years. And when he did go past round 1 against Sean Strickland, he lost the fight. I know it was close, split decision, but he lost the fight. Fight before that went to a decision against Keita Nakamura. He won a decision, but I remember that fight. He was like a minus 1,000 favourite. The size difference was ridiculous. I can still picture it now at the weigh-ins. It was crazy. This is back when Breese was fighting at welterweight. And, Nakamura had some success in that fight. He struggled. I just think Tom Breese gets overrated by people. I think he is well put together. I think he's got good boxing. He's a good grappler. He does a lot of grappling competitions. But I just don't think he's really ever going to put it all together, especially when you couple that with the mental side of the game that he just has obviously massive issues with. All his wins in the UFC have come in first round, I believe. Just not seeing a round 2 for 4 years. He seemed to kind of quit against Brendan Allen to me. All the pullouts he's had. Let me just bring up his topology record because it'll probably show where all the pullouts are. But for me, I just can't. Look, if this was closer to even money, I might have been tempted. I do try and avoid betting flakes no matter what, even the odds now. Because I said I'd only bet Michael Johnson as a dog. I bet him as a dog against, what's the guy's name? His last fight where he got Achilles locked. Absolutely dominated round 1 and then he comes out round 2 and gets tapped to a bloody Achilles lock. But that's a flake for you. I shouldn't have been surprised. So I'm fed up with losing my money on people that are just going to cave in there. I'm just really trying to avoid it. And I've done it a lot. You look at a fight stylistically, and it's just so tempting to put your money on them. But when someone's a flake, and I'll give you a prime example. Weekend just gone, we had 2 units on Kyler Phillips inside the distance, and the reason I took that bet is because Cameron Else, I could see it from tape, complete flake. If he doesn't get you out there in round 1, he collapses mentally. I watched 2 fights where he got stopped. One was at the end of round 1, one was at the beginning of round 2. And I tell you for nothing, at the end of round 1 against Kyler Phillips, when he was in trouble, when they showed him in the corner, I swear down, I saw in his eyes that he was ready to quit. And that's why I took that inside the distance bet, because I knew Cameron was a flake. Someone that would just give up first sign of trouble. I'm not saying Breese is on that level, because Cameron's a very, very ultra live example of being a flake. But that's the kind of things these guys do in fights, guys. They will just give up on you. And I don't like having my money on those types of people. Christ almighty, I don't know if every single one of these is on Breese. I think they probably are, but we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cancellations he's had. UFC fights. They've got Kopylov. That was Kopylov, so fair enough to Breese. Kopylov pulled out there. So, but he's had 5, and I assume they were all him. So, I just can't put my money on him. Do I want to pick KB Bhullar though? Because he doesn't look great on tape. I don't want to look like an idiot picking KB Bhullar here because I don't know. I just don't think he's the guy to bring out the quit in Tom Breese, if I'm completely honest. Like I said, if it was a closer money line, I probably would have been roped into betting Breese here and hiding behind my eyes until the fight was over. But it just looks, he just looks a low volume kickboxer, stands at range. Look, I can't bet Breese, but I'm going to pick him. But I'm not betting him. I'm not prepared to lose money on him flaking out on me. But I'm going to pick him just because stylistically, it looks like the kind of fight that's good for him. But do not be surprised if you've bet him and he lets you down, guys, by kind of flaking on you in some respect. So I will not be risking money on this fight. I will wait until Tom Breese gets a more stellar opponent again to fade him. Because like I said, the bettors seem to like betting Tom Breese. So I expect I'll get a good line to fade him against someone who I feel is more adequate to do the job. But Bhullar might look better here. Don't be surprised. A lot of these guys that come from the regional scene into the UFC look better than they did on the regional scene. He's had a year out as well. So I wouldn't be shocked if he comes out here and wins this fight at all. But I have to go off what I've seen on tape. I can't just make an assumption like that. And I'm going to pick Tom Breese to get this W, and I hope he does, because then it's going to open, and I hope it's good, because then it's going to open up an opportunity for me to fade him. Hopefully next time, if he gets a stylistic opponent where I feel the quit can be dragged out of him. Next fight is, one sec, let me find my list, guys. Main card next. So we've got 6 fight. No, why do people keep putting Chase Sherman versus Todd Duffy on Wikipedia? We've got Youssef Zalal taking on Topuria. I bet Topuria a couple of years ago on Cage Warriors when he was the underdog against Brian Bhullar. Comfortable win in the first round. Look, this kid's dangerous. He's in on short notice here. He's only 23 years of age. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He got it a couple of years ago. So I don't know how legit that black belt is, but when you go and look at his fights, you can see the kid's very talented on the mat. Very good submission game. Stand up, I've not got a read on yet. Now we've not seen him fight for a while. He's coming off that big KO win. You can find it on the internet. Sparks the guy with a right hand, but I've just really not got a read on his stand up because his fights just go to the floor. But we've not seen him for a year. He's 23, kid that age, that talented. You've got to assume he's making improvements. So the problem with him is he's not been out of round one. One fight's been out of round one, but that was back in like 2016. He's finishing all these fights in round one, and I don't like that because how's his cardio hold up past round two, past round one? What's he like under adversity? I don't even really have a good read on his stand-up because we just haven't really seen it. But he is a talent. I remember capping him for Cage Warriors and being like, damn, this kid looks good. But he's kind of fought lower level guys as well. But you can clearly see he's talented. He's trained in Spain as well. I think he's going to have to, if he wants to fulfill his potential, he's going to have to probably move somewhere a bit higher level for his training. Not to say you can't be successful at a smaller gym. A lot of guys are, but I just wonder what type of, sparring is he getting? Is he the best guy on the mats? Possibly he is. Iron sharpens iron, so he's probably going to have to make a move at some point. Like I say, short notice here as well. So Youssef Zalal is very good, talented guy. He's got good stand-up. I mean, I'd be surprised if Zalal isn't the better striker here. Zalal has very good cardio as well, can fight at a high pace. What I don't like about him is his fight IQ is a little bit off for me. If you watch his fights, like the Jordan Griffin fight, he was engaging in the grappling then when, he didn't need to. He had the advantage on the feet. He was kind of engaging in the grappling with Griffin. I've seen him taken down in his fights as well. And he scrambles up, but he does give his back. Someone like Tupara, especially in round one, is going to be all over that. You have to be careful. So, I looked at this fight yesterday when Zalal was minus 160, and I finished tape and I was in two minds. Do I want to bet him at minus 160? And I thought to myself, if I'm in two minds, it's a pass because I should come away from tape being like, yeah, minus 160, there's value there. And I don't know if there is. There might be. He might dominate this fight, especially if he gets out of round one. But Tupara might look fine for 3 rounds. If you said to me now he won't gas, and he can fight at a pace that's allowed sets for 3 rounds, I think this is going to be a very competitive fight. And therefore, if I'm hoping that Tupara slows down, it's, I'm just making a massive assumption there. And I don't like betting on someone hoping their opponent's going to slow down. I don't really know how the stand-up's going to look. I've not got a great read on his stand-up either. So there's a lot of holes there. But Zalal, he's had 3 UFC fights and he's looked good in all of them. Jordan Griffin's a decent win. Pete Barrett, Austin Lingo, kind of, gimme fights really. I know a lot of people disappointed Choi pulled out. I know a lot of people that were on Choi quite heavily. I hadn't got round to taping it, but the line did look very wide to me. But I never got round to taping it. But I think I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to pick Topuria. I'm not betting him because, as I say, he's a round one merchant at the moment, and he might fall apart after round one. But I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think the kid's talented. I just hope that his cardio holds up for free, and I hope he isn't a quick job because he could well be. The going gets tough. The guy might fall apart. That's why I can't put money on him, even though he's the underdog. For me to risk money on him, I'd need a wider line with him. Question marks, but I'm going out on a limb. I looked at this guy a few years ago and I really liked him. He's definitely a talent, and I think this could be a very entertaining fight. If his cardio can hold up, I think we're in for a fight here, guys. So I'm going to go with Topuria. It's not a confident bet. I'm not betting it myself, so I'm not saying to you guys to bet it, but because of the question marks, the line's not wide enough for me to risk it. But I really like the kid, and it's going to be a very entertaining fight. I'm really looking forward to this one. And if you guys didn't know, Bet Online, because Five Dimes have left the American market, I think they are coming back, but they've left it at the moment. Bet Online have jumped straight in to attract all their customers. They're now doing props, including handicaps, which I've never had access to before. And they're offering lines on performance of the night, fight of the night. Last week was a good one. Managed to cash plus 500 on Kyler Phillips on performance of the night. That came in. And I had the Williams fight for performance of the night. And I thought he was going to get it. But ultimately, Dana decided not to reward a performance. For fight of the night, I had Williams. And I thought he was going to get it. But Dana ultimately decided to give 4 performance of the night bonuses, which meant I got my money back. So it worked out well. I don't think it's as cut and dry this week. Last week I thought was quite easy. Some of there was clear value on some of the fights. This week's not as clear, but I'm actually going to go and have a look at what fight of the night pays for Topuria Zalal, because I think it could be, if it goes the distance, I think it's going to be a very competitive, fun fight. So I'm going out on a limb here. Let's go with Topuria to get the W. Next fight, Markus Perez, Dricus du Plessis, the South African chap. I can't get a read on Dricus, I'll be completely honest. I've done tape on him. I wasn't overly impressed, but what I will say about him is he finds a way to win fights. Every fight he's won, he's inside the distance. Now, normally that's a bit of a red flag for me, but Dricus has got wins in round 2 and round 3. It's not like he's going out and just, they're all round 1 victories. So I think this kid can probably fight for 3 rounds, okay. He used to fight at welterweight. I don't know how. The guy looks big at middleweight. Very, very, very solid physique. But yeah, I just can't really get a great read on the guy, to be honest. I taped him a couple of weeks ago now. Less than that, probably. It was probably a week ago, and I can't. My memory isn't great on what I took from tape, but I just came away just unsure about him. I don't think he looked good against Roberto Soldic, even in the win. And then he's coming off a couple of wins. He beat Jolton Santos, or he's also known as Lubabach, I believe, because I've looked at Lubabach before. He beat Alex Lahore in Cage Warriors. He beat Craig White as well, I think, Lubabach. He got a win over him. I'm just trying to think how the fight was playing out. I can't even really remember. But I just came away just unsure really what he's good at. Apparently he's got a K1 background with a good record, but didn't overly shine through to me on tape that he was a particularly great striker. He still trains in South Africa as well. We know it's not a hotbed for MMA, but he's definitely one of the better South African fighters that we've seen. And the problem that compounds it is he's fighting Markus Perez, who is another fighter I just can't get a great read on. Perez, he's got like no structure to his game. He just come out and his stand-up is just wild. He'll throw like low percentage stuff. But he's very opportunistic, Perez. He's dangerous. You've got to be careful with him. And he's durable as well. So for me, I just struggled. I can't bet Perez. I said after tape, if Perez was plus 150, I might be tempted. But I can't bet him at like the plus 120, plus 130 territory. He's just too undisciplined, too unstructured for me. I don't know what he's going to do when he gets in there. I don't think he even knows what he's going to do. I mean, he trains at American Top Team now, so you'd like to think that they're trying to put some kind of structure together for him. And he slows down in fights as well, Perez. That's the other problem. So I just passed on the fight completely. I did bet yesterday at Bet Online. I took Perez no scorecard plus 140, which means I only lose money if Dricus finishes him. If it goes to distance, I get my money back, and if Perez finishes inside the distance, I win the bet at plus 140. He is durable, so I think Dricus will do well to stop him. It'll certainly make a statement on his UFC debut. So I'm gonna pick Dricus, but I have zero confidence in it. I'm just picking him a bit of a fade on Perez just because he's just a very unstructured fighter. And I don't think he comes in with a solid game plan to fights, and a lot of the stuff he tries is low percentage. But Dricus needs to be careful that he doesn't end up in some kind of sticky situation on the ground. Perez, he will lock up Anaconda, Darcy's, etc. And saw that nice head and arm he hit on Heinisch in LFA from the bottom. He's an opportunistic guy. So I picked Dricus, but I'm not betting the fight at all. I honestly don't know if there's any value on that line. I just can't get a good read on him. There might be, there might not be. It's just one of them fights for me. I came away just really unsure what's going to happen. Next fight, we have Ben Rothwell taking on Marcin Tybura. Looking forward to this fight. Marcin Tybura for me is a guy that I think is on the downside of his career, unfortunately. I know he's coming off back-to-back wins, but he's had, two very favourable matchups, really. He got the late notice replacement, luckily for him probably, in Makwan Grishin, who is a light heavyweight. He managed to grind out a decision there. Before that, again, managed to grind out Sergei Spivak. Spivak was winning that fight on the feet. He had to take Spivak down to win that fight. And just to touch on Spivak, absolutely gutted that he pulled out against Tom Aspinall. I was loving a bet on Spivak there. I think I got plus 275. And I'm not saying it was a banker, but there was a lot of unknowns with Tom Aspinall and Spivak. I think his stock rose a little bit as well after seeing Felipe at the weekend. I think that line was crazy. I hope they rebook that. I hope Aspinall blows this guy away and they rebook that fight, because I will be on Spivak all day long again. But anyway, back to this fight. Before the Spivak fight, he was coming off two bad knockout losses: Augusto Sakai and Shamil Abdurakhimov. Saying that wrong probably. Two guys not known to be massive punchers in the heavyweight division, and got slept by both of them. Fight before that, he managed to grind out a win over Stefan Struve. He got hurt in that fight as well at one point. And then before that, Derek Lewis stopped him in the third round. Now he was winning that fight. Derek Lewis always had bad takedown defence. He was managing to out-grapple Lewis and looked like he was on his way to a win, but just got trapped on the fence and got put away in the third round. And you can see now with the way he fights that I think he's lacking confidence on the feet. I think he realises that his chin isn't great, and if you're worried about your chin at heavyweight, that's not a good position to be in. I'm pretty sure here he's not going to want to stand with Ben. Ben is a big boy. He's a little bit slow, a little bit lumbering, but you don't want to be getting hit by Ben Rothwell, especially if you're unsure about your chin. I'm pretty sure Ben hits harder than Shamil and or Augusto. So I think he's going to be looking to take Ben down. Concern for me there, though. I mean, if you go back and watch a Luis Henrique fight, he managed to get the winning round 3 against Louis. Louis gassed pretty badly, and he ended up on the bottom off of a takedown attempt. He ended up on the bottom and getting pounded out. But up until that point, Tybura had been controlled in pretty much all the clinch exchanges for the duration of the fight. So if he's shooting on Ben, you've also got to worry about Ben's choke, because if you go and watch like the Matt Mitrione fight or the Josh Barnett fight, no one chokes out Josh Barnett. What he done to Josh Barnett was pretty damn impressive. He's one of the better grapplers we've seen in the sport, especially at heavyweight. Like, they're really, really solid grapplers. So for him to choke out Josh Barnett and get him to tap is definitely a notch on his bedpost. So Tybura's going to have to worry about that every time he's ducking his head, dropping down for a takedown. He's also got to worry about if he's not getting the takedown, he's going to be therefore be in the clinch. And if Ben's turning him in the clinch, Ben's got some nasty, nasty uppercuts in the clinch. I just think stylistically this is a real tough fight for Tybura here. As well with Ben Rothwell, I mean, you have to go back a few years to see his takedown defence, because no one's really tried to take him down in recent memory. So I did go back and watch the Cain Velasquez fight. I did vaguely remember it, because I always remember thinking it was a premature stoppage, and I mean, it probably was, but I mean, this is prime Cain Velasquez, who for me is one of the best fighters we've ever seen in the sport, especially at heavyweight. Just unbelievable what he could do as a heavyweight. I mean, he was ragdolling Ben, just taking him down. But what I will say to give Ben his credit is not only the durability, but he kept getting back up. Cain couldn't keep him down. He kept popping back up to his feet. Now, that fight is like 11 years ago, so you have to question where Ben is now in terms of age and, his athleticism. So you have to go forward to the most recent example is Gabriel Gonzaga, which is 7 years ago. But someone pointed out to me yesterday that it says on Fight Metric that Gonzaga got 3 takedowns, but I mean, I haven't bothered to go back and rewatch it. I did watch it when I done tape on this fight. Gonzaga did not get 3, what I would class as 3 takedowns. He might have pulled Ben's legs out from under him, but he never stripped his base away. He never had Ben flat on his back. Ben was getting up straight away, basically like the Cain fight, except Cain did get him down flat a few times. Gonzaga never done that. He was defending the takedowns, posting and getting back to his feet. He looks like he's a nightmare to take down. Now, he's older now. I know there's some USADA question marks as well. He had that layoff. So there is that question is, has he lost a bit of athletic ability? Is he going to be easier to take down and hold down now? But, I just think if you're betting Tybura here, I think Ben's chin is starting to go a little bit. Did see him hurt a couple of times against OSP. But, Tybura is not known for his big punching. I just can't see him knocking Ben out. I'd be very surprised if he manages to knock Ben out. I think to win this fight, he's going to have to do what no one's ever done and basically lay and pray. And the other concern for Tybura is he can slow down in fights. And if if Tybura's getting stuffed and he's having to constantly work for the takedown, he's going to gas out. There's no way he can do like a Colby Covington here and just, chain wrestle for 3 rounds. It's not going to work. It's going to slow down. Ben's a big guy. That guy's a lump. He's going to be turning him in the clinch. He's going to be leaning on him as well, and he's going to be taking power shots off Ben as well. I just can't see how he lay him. If he pulls it off and lay and praise him, fair play, Tybura. You've done well. I can't see him knocking him out. As I said, his chin's always been solid. It is starting to show some signs, but I can't see Tybura being the man. So for me, I think Ben's going to walk him down on the feet. Tybura's going to be trying to move, but I just think Ben's going to just end up kind of clumping him and clubbing him to a KO win. I just see Tybura having difficulty getting the takedowns, and if he does, holding him down, unless Ben has, lost a lot of athleticism in that regard, then he might be able to hold him down. But, that's just a completely blind assumption. And, I'd be surprised if he's lost that much athleticism that he can just be suddenly held down. And like I said, he's got to worry about where he's putting his head with that choke that he's got as well. So I think Rothwell's going to club him, to be completely honest with you. The line did open up around even money. I thought that was a no-brainer to bet Rothwell. Got a bit up to about -200. Money's actually started coming back in on Tybura this week. He's dropped to, some books he's like -165, -175. That is heavyweight, anything can happen. So you've got to remember that as well. It is a heavyweight fight. Strange things can happen in that heavyweight division. So, and Ben's getting up there in age, he's not in his prime himself. But I think he should be 3-1. I thought he beat Ivanov. You look at the MMA media scores, and I think one person scored it for Ivanov. I thought that was a bad decision. I think he should be 3-1 since he returned. Andrei Arlovski just, someone that can move like that, pick away at him. It's a tough fight for Ben, but Tybura's not that type of guy. So I like Rothwell here. It is tough to pull the trigger on someone that's, getting on for -200, especially at heavyweight. But I like Ben here. I have to pick Ben. I feel like that's a fairly confident pick for me. Next fight, co-main event, Edson Barboza, Makwan, Amirkhani. This fight does seem pretty straightforward to pick. You've got to think if Makwan can't get the sub in round 1, he's probably going to fall apart, and Barboza's either going to stop him late or get a decision by winning round 2 and 3. Full props are out now. I'm just seeing what Amirkhani round 1 is, +650. I think that's just I managed to get 200 quid on Barboza at -150. This is when the lines first dropped. I think he was even a bit lower than that at one point at Bet Online. But I managed to jump on at 150 just for 200 quid, which is like 0.2 units for me. By the time limits were increased where you could get decent money down, he was up at over -200, which I didn't want to pay. And, predictably, everyone's parlaying up here because, stylistically, it's a good, kind of like the Tom Breese. Stylistically, on paper, it's a good fight for Barboza. He's the much better striker. And it looks like if Makwan can't get the round 1 finish, he tends to kind of fall apart. But, I know he beat Chris Fishgold in round 2, but generally speaking, Makwan, if he can't get the round 1 finish, he does slow down in fights, let's say. I'm not going to say falls apart because, you had the Arnold Allen fight. It was competitive for 3 rounds, but he definitely slows down in fights. Barboza's not the easiest guy in the world to take down, and he's going to get harder and harder to take down, especially as the fight wears on. But round 1, Makwan's definitely live. I don't know if Makwan round 1 submission is available. I think if that's a silly price. Let's have a look. It is Makwan round 1 submission +900. Look, I think if you've bet Barboza, I think you'd be silly not to put something on Mac. I'm not normally a hedger. I don't like it, but I think sometimes you do have a pretty clear case of a hedge. And like I said with Kyler Phillips last week, where we bet him inside the distance, I also recommended a small bet on Cameron Else as cover to win in round 1, because for me, that was his only way of winning that fight, and it was +1200. So I thought you might as well have a little, if you want to cover yourself, just put something on it. Sometimes it's really, really clear. Sometimes I don't like doing it because you bet KO or inside the distance and then they win a decision, But sometimes it's just cut and dry. And this for me feels like a pretty cut and dry one that Makwan probably wins in round 1. So the round 1 sub +900. I don't think you're being silly by covering yourself if you have jumped on Barboza. I can see why people like Barboza here, but for me, I don't think 145 is the right weight class for Barboza. I think it's a bit of a reach. I don't think it's gonna, you saw in he should have won his last fight, but he didn't blow me away either, Barboza. I don't think 145 you're going to see a rejuvenated Edson Barboza. So I think he might be declining a little bit. He's getting up there in age now. I think he's, and he does rely on his explosiveness. I'm not saying I've noticed it slowing down in terms of speed and whatnot, but I do think now you're going to see a gradual decline from Edson Barboza. But it is a good fight for him stylistically. He's going to tear Makwan apart on the feet if Makwan can't get this fight to the floor. And Makwan's a southpaw as well, so like the open stance is just a complete nightmare. but Makwan is dangerous in round one. So I have to pick. I'm going to pick Barboza, but I would definitely not be surprised if Makwan locks up that Daukaus or Anaconda choke in the first round. He's incredibly good with it. And the problem is he's so good with it now. If he does take you down, it's probably difficult not to kind of start panicking with regards to it. And then that can make things, if you start panicking about it, that can make things 10 times worse if you're stuck on the bottom. So it could be a sweaty round one. Amirkhani isn't someone that forces takedowns. Not while he's fresh anyway. Once he starts getting tired, they can start getting a little bit false. But when he's fresh in weight, he'll try and time it really well. And he is good at timing the takedowns. But I'm going to pick Barboza, but there's no way I'm playing minus. I didn't want to play over minus 200, and that's where it was once the limits increased, basically. Like I said, I've got a small bet on minus 150. I'm not going to hedge that bet, but I'm probably going to bet Amirkhani round one submission just because I feel that there's a better than plus 900 chance that happens. So I probably will put something on that, but I would cover your bet if you're on Barboza. But I am picking Barboza to win here. Makwan's short notice as well, which isn't ideal for someone that's got some cardio concerns. Next, we've got the main event. Marlon Moraes taking on Cory Sandhagen. I haven't dug too deep into tape on this one yet, purely because of the betting line. As you know, this is a betting podcast. I'm a bettor. I want to make money. And I've got a clear angle with this fight. Now, Cory did open as the underdog when Bet online released. I managed to get 200 quid on Cory at plus 120, 2.2 in decimal. And then the line shot up and, I couldn't believe it. Cory got bet up all the way to, I think he was at one point minus 160 or so, which is kind of crazy. I know some people have got a Marlon at like plus 140, plus 150, and I can't fault that at all. The line got silly. I was thinking it was going to be a pick'em, and I was really going to dig into tape because I like Cory here. That's like without doing tape, that's my lean. But the line just got crazy. Money has come in on Marlon. Cory is now down to around minus 135. It's still a bit steep for me. I'd really want Cory I really want it at a pick'em, to be honest. And then I'll go over tape to see if I do want to bet Cory. But the way I see this fight, though, is that it's a 5-rounder, and I just don't really like Marlon's chances over 5 rounds. He does slow down in fights. We've seen it on numerous occasions now. We saw it against Henry Cejudo. He came out really hot in round one. I had some money on Marlon in that fight, and I could see it coming a mile away. Henry was just taking what he was dishing out, and I could see what was going to happen. Then you had the Jose Aldo fight. Now, I think he won that fight. I bet Aldo in that fight. I thought the line was stupid. He was like plus 160. And going into round 3, it was Aldo's fight to lose. And he just didn't do enough in round 3, Aldo. He was the one on the front foot, but he just wasn't throwing enough volume. And Marlon was definitely tired. There was no way he was 100% fresh there. He definitely had slowed down himself. But Aldo just didn't do enough in that 3rd round to get the W. And then you've got the other side of Marlon, where he's very dangerous in round 1. Like I said, the Henry Cejudo fight, he was all over Cejudo in round 1. And he had a decent round 1 against Jose Aldo. He tends to win round 1 in fights. But then there's this other side to him where he can get involved in very low volume kickboxing matches. We saw it against Rothwell or Sunsao. Now, Sunsao's the kind of guy, he's low volume himself. I think he does kind of drag people into those types of fights, or he can do. But then we had it with John Dodson as well. Became a bit of a low volume affair. The difference here, though, is Cory Sandhagen's very aggressive. And Cory, despite being pretty long, he likes to fight in close. So, I can really see this fight playing out, that Marlon's going to be dangerous in round one when he's fresh. It's going to be interesting to see if Cory uses his normal strategy of kind of getting in your face, because that's dangerous against Marlon, especially when Marlon's fresh with how explosive he is. So it's going to be interesting for me to see how he approaches this fight early. But I do think the longer it goes, the more it favours Cory. I do, we haven't seen Cory over 5 rounds before, but he trains at elevation, and I just get the impression he's the type of guy that will be able to keep a good pace going for 5 rounds, whereas Marlon can't. And I think although Cory, he does have to be careful, he can't be too reckless in round one. I think he's still got to take some chances here early just to bring the fight out of Marlon and make Marlon overexpend and ultimately slow down, because I think that's when Cory takes over. So my angle for this fight at the moment, with the way the lines are, is just to live bet it, because I think round one will be very telling. How much does Marlon expend? Is it a low volume affair in round one? Therefore, is Marlon's cardio fine? And if it is a low volume affair in round one, who wins round one? And then take it from there. But I'm hoping it's a higher paced fight where Marlon wins round one, but you can see that he's maybe starting to slow down and the pace just carries through. And I just think Cory will turn the fight around and take over the later it goes. So that's what I'm hoping for. If it does drop to even money pre-fight, I'll dig deeper into tape, because I haven't really looked at too much tape here, just because there was no way I was betting Cory at like minus 160, and I do worry about Marlon winning this fight if he can't get an early finish, so that kind of put me off betting Marlon as the underdog as well. But a very interesting fight. I'm really looking forward to it. It should be very entertaining. Really interested to see how Sandhagen approaches it and how Marlon approaches it as well, because I think he's had a 5-rounder in the WEC or WSOF as it became. But I'm just having to double check now. I'm sure he has had a 5-rounder. He went 5 rounds once against John Rettinghouse. I haven't seen that fight. I went against Josh Hill, but they're kind of fights where it would have, I assume, pretty much been all one-way traffic. I think Josh Hill was quite a wrestler, so I imagine Marlon was just managing to keep that fight on the feet and controlling the stand-up, I imagine. But I'd have to watch it to be certain. But Cory is going to, is Marlon going to even go the grappling route? Because, he's a good grappler. I don't think so. It's going to be on the feet, this fight. It's going to be interesting to see how it's approached from both sides. But I'm especially intrigued to see how Cory approaches it, because I think he does need Marlon to slow down, and I think to do that you need to draw out a high volume in him. But at the same time, you've got to be careful you don't take too many risks, because I'm not sure Cory is as durable as someone like Henry Cejudo, who's just got a completely granite chin. But, he stood there with John Lineker at the end of the day and took some shots off John Lineker. So it seems like he's fairly durable. And Cory's, he's coming off a bit of a flat performance against Aljo, where he just got subbed in, a minute and a half. He's going to want to redeem himself here for that. But I'm expecting a very entertaining fight. Has Cory been finished? No, he's not. It's just the Aljo submission. And then Jamal Emmers, but that was wrestling really, and that was a very close fight. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Saying that, we did see him hurt against Alcantara, didn't we? So he's got to be careful early. So for me at the moment, with the way the line is, I'm going to live bet this fight. I'm picking Cory Sandhagen here. But even if the line dropped to a pick'em, I don't even know if I'd bet Cory. I think I'm too nervous about what happens early on to bet Cory. But I definitely, I'd be very surprised if Cory comes out here and wins round one, and therefore the live betting line is dead after round one. If you're interested in betting Cory, as you think he'd turn the fight around the later it goes, like I am. So I think that's probably going to be my angle for this particular fight. So I'll pick Cory, but it's a very interesting fight that I'm really looking forward to. So that wraps up the card, guys. Good luck with your bets. If you're interested in the membership, as I've said, ProMMABetting.com. All the memberships are listed there under Premium Betting. If you want to give us a follow on Twitter at Pro MMA Betting, I often throw up some sort of discount on the membership throughout fight week that you can jump on. I normally reserve it for the first 3 people. And if you can hit the like button on that video for this video, that would be greatly appreciated. And I'll be back for the next week's card, which is heavily juiced and doesn't look great from a betting angle from first inspection. But good luck with your bets. Hope you all make some money.